Hey everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to our Paws On Animation channel and our podcast.
And today we're finally covering the 5th season of LEGO Monkie Kid. Hooray!
Yeah.
Sort of.
The show stakes, I should say, guys, have never been higher as the team races to find the 5 color stones in order to restore the world, which started falling apart after the end of season 4, and so did the show. And it's still a wild season from start to finish. But
before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and occasionally feature podcasts and Water Paws videos.
Thank you so much for joining us today, subscribing, sharing our videos, commenting, everything you do. We appreciate you so much.
Yes.
Biggest disappointment for me, besides some other things we're going to mention, is that they had the audacity not to make a movie for this season.
Yes. So do not expect another separate podcast for the movie that they have at the beginning or the end, because there wasn't one, period. No. And we think because they have changed animation studios for the show, they decided to just make sure they get it done on time and just stuck with the 10 episode season. So this will be the last thing we cover right now for Monkie Kid.
Yeah, it's kind of a slap in the face to fans because you really wanted to see the movie. And we expected the movie, and then when we realized it was none, we were disappointed.
Yeah.
Now you also cannot watch this series on Prime where it started for seasons 1 through 4.
No.
When it was being animated by, produced I should say, by Flying Bark Productions, is that right? And they switched to Wild Brain Studios for season 5, and now you can only see it on Peacock.
Yes, the entire series, which is bizarre to say the least.
So season 5 is only 10 episodes.
Yet again.
And aired from June 28th to July 16th of 2024. And there were a lot of changes in here. They said there weren't going to be, but if you watch it and you trust your own eyes and your own mind, then you see there are changes.
Yes.
Not just in the animation, but in the characters themselves, how they present themselves, what they focus on. And they no longer have a superhero vibe or edge to them. It's something totally different. And I do think that this probably affected the viewing for fans, and it affected how well it was received. And unfortunately now, you can tell that people have moved on because you don't even see any fan art for Monkie Kid anymore.
Exactly. And when the season was announced, people were excited. But then we got to the trailer and it caused a big uproar because the animation looked different. Because people could tell, like, this is not Flying Bark. What's going on? Why does it look like it's downgraded? Then came in the excuses. But they finally just straight up said, okay, Flying Bark is no longer working with us for this show because they have too many other projects. They work on Avatar and other things. So we're using Wild Brain Studios to replicate the style as much as we can to continue making the show. But before they got to that, they tried to pretend that there was an issue. And even the audacity to say, you better be grateful that they didn't cancel it. Just be grateful you have season 5 and shut up. So, in retaliation, people decided, okay, I just won't watch season 5. And a lot of people ended up leaving the fandom or no longer watching the show because it was treated as fans being ungrateful that they have a series because they were very disappointed in the change of quality animation. And we understand Wild Brain is different from Flying Bark.
Sure.
And to their credit, they did try to keep the characters on model the whole time. It's just that when you watch it, until you just get adjusted to it because you have to, it's part of its identity. Part of the show's identity came with Flying Bark because it was always really fluid, very colorful,
beautiful,
very fun, very anime-esque and everything. And they tried to replicate some of that in here, but you can tell they didn't want to do a lot of these great big expressions like the other one. They tried to keep it simple so they could get the episodes out.
Now, it looks like they probably were trying to work with a cheaper budget. Unfortunately, it seems to be a disease that's going around a lot of these studios. They want to do things for cheaper, and they think the viewers are too stupid or blind to see there's a difference.
Well, they pretty much did say that,
And we're not. We know the quality when it's changed, when it goes up and when it goes down.
Yes.
They are at liberty and have a right to make the changes they want. Just like we are at liberty and have a right to choose to continue watching or to stop. Now, we went ahead and watched this season because we do have those of you who wanted us to cover it,
Right.
including Phoenix.
Right.
And so we went ahead and watched it, and we're covering it.
Mm-hmm.
But there were so many changes within here, it wasn't the same show. Another thing that changed was the focus from being a superhero show, because 1 through 3, it was definitely a superhero show.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's more focused on Chinese culture, the clothes change
Specifically.
for the characters.
Yeah.
They were more focused on the deities of China.
Yeah.
It was no longer a superhero show.
Yes, and we say that because even in our 4th season podcast, we could tell it was a tonal shift. And here it's completely shifted being specifically on Journey to the West. And we understand that was always part of the show. But what you liked is that they blended it well. It was the equivalent of like when Kung Fu Panda has Kung Fu Masters be superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they did for this show. Well, now they've taken that away, and it's just straight up the heavenly realm is starting to go into that they've used for almost every show they've ever made.
Yeah.
It's more towards Sun Wukong and Journey to the West and that story and their rules and everything, because these characters are now breaking their rules that their world has, and it becomes a lot more serious.
Yeah.
Now, some were open to that and like that. It went from being more comedy driven to drama and story and like the tonal shift, but not everybody did, because too many people left the fandom and didn't even talk about it when it was finished.
And I didn't, because that's what you loved about the series. Why pull you in with something you love and then go, psych, we're going to change it now? It was almost like what it was. And we don't know if that was always the plan and we just didn't know it, or
Right.
if it was a change because Wild Brain took over and they decided to go in a different direction because of the change in the animators.
Right.
I don't know. But it was not a smart move. We do understand that the original story this is from is a Chinese story.
Exactly.
The Monkey King.
Right.
We are fully aware of that before someone says that to us, don't at us. But the thing is, Rascal said that made this a standout was a merging of East and West, and it became something unique, fun, beautiful to look at, and you were learning more about the Monkey King.
Mm-hmm.
You were learning how they were morphed into superheroes with the abilities, how each one had their own strengths,
Mm-hmm.
their weaknesses. They were growing as characters. It was just a perfect show. I
Mm-hmm.
never expected to like it.
Right.
And I didn't expect to love it, but I did. But I'm going to tell you, with season 4 for me,
Not much.
it was a big change, and I personally did not care for season 5. I'm not going to
Right.
sit here and pretend I did. I didn't. It was too different from what we're used to. We do love that they brought back the voice actors.
Right.
We're so grateful that they were still employed and they kept them.
Mhm.
And we're grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's too much that's different about this series in the 5th season. And if they do come back, I will be surprised.
Right. And 2 things we definitely need to mention is that this is not spoilers because the show has been out and right now finished for a little bit. When they got towards the end of the season, we will admit we were interested to see how this would end because the stakes were pretty high. The world was falling apart. We're getting Voltron vibes from the stones being used to save the world. And they kept having this foreshadowing here where MK was going to have to sacrifice himself to save the world, or just use his monkey powers to destroy the world, and he had to make the choice of which one did matter most to him. And it became either him accepting it would be the end of his life, and his friends trying to find another way to save him and the world without trying to sacrifice one of the characters. And what we didn't like about it, like it was interesting, and we were hoping that MK would make it out. And we were getting invested in the rising tension. The thing that kind of destroyed it is that the antagonist that they had pretty much started off with Nija's father, which they have pretty much had established was the villain. Then they turn around the final 2 episodes and say, oh, plot twist, it was the snake villain whose name I forgot. He's the real bad guy pulling all the strings from the shadows. And it was so bad. You can tell it was so forced in that the characters were reacting like, well, who's this guy? And he keeps acting like he's been in the story all this time. And he's been in the shadows waiting for his time to strike. And he's been always part of the story. And it becomes a sort of in-joke that they're aware this guy doesn't fit as being antagonist or a surprise antagonist, because no one really found him as a threat until he threatened to kill somebody, because it's like, well, we don't know him, we haven't seen him the whole series. Was he in the last season? No. And it was funny, but it was the truth. It's like, we can't get invested unless you know this character from Journey to the West and you're automatically adjusted. You don't know who this is.
Right.
And then the other thing would be, Mama had pointed this out when we were watching, would be the voice performance. Because by the time it got to the end, they leave it on a sort of open-ended where they save everybody, but they leave it open to where they could have one more season. Like, there's one more storyline to have in here because it said the greatest challenge yet to come. Mm-hmm. So there's possibly going to be one last season. And when we were watching it, Ma has said that the voice actors sounded different in performance. Mm-hmm. Everyone was still there from the previous seasons that were still alive, but you kept saying they sound different or from the last season.
It was like
and you
a
didn't know why.
CW version of Monkey Kid.
Oh, oh my gosh, yeah. And this is no disrespect to them.
Absolutely.
Perhaps it had been a while and they were readjusting because they sounded fine by the end, but for a while it did sound a little off, especially when Mom was saying the delivery of Jack DeSena and the new voice actor Alejandro Saab sounded different from the time they had started.
Now, fairly, maybe it was the production that was different.
A little bit, yeah.
The equipment that was different.
And
that
the
could have
energy.
been it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
and the energy.
It was different. But again, we were very happy and grateful they were back.
Right.
Last thing I want to throw in case anyone has problems, is that one thing that stuck out for critics is that even though they weren't rating it very highly, they were giving it a 3 out of 5 usually. Mm-hmm. But one thing they kept saying is that although there's not a lot of bang for your parental buck, your child will be enthralled with the high quality animation.
Yes.
The beauty of how it looks and the likable cast of characters.
Yes.
And then with season 5, none of that was there.
Unfortunately for us, and clearly a lot of people now, it just wasn't. It's not just us being difficult or hating or ungrateful. Sure. It's just that a lot of us can see that it was going through some growing pains in terms of switching through this other company and changing its story focus from action, comedy, drama to straight up drama, action into the world. Probably didn't sit well with a lot of people who were there for a whole different vibe.
And that's interesting because you think about Naisha. Mm-hmm. Not just the first one, but the second one. Mm-hmm. And in these movies, they look like they took a cue from LEGO Monkie Kid and blended East and West perfectly. Mm-hmm. How do you be the inspiration for this and other movies and shows that have learned to blend from you, and then you renege and take back that and turn it into something that only focuses on one? Yeah. And you kind of took your own formula that other people are copying now and being very successful, and you ruined it. Yeah. And they can't blame anyone but themselves. And again, they have a right to. It's their property.
Yeah, they do.
But it wasn't a good decision. And now, unfortunately, they're going to have to pay.
Right. And we don't know. We are hoping that it has a 6th season. There's been no announcement for a 6th season.
Haven't seen information on another season. Haven't seen anything.
Right. So either they're going to wait a while before they announce the next season, maybe so they can adjust and get better at doing the style, because it does unfortunately look stilted a lot of the time. Now, for some, they said it didn't matter, the story was so good, but unfortunately, it looks like for the rest of this fandom and audience, it did affect it, because even their energy was different in delivery, and that might be why they sound a little different in the beginning.
So if you've seen LEGO Monkie Kid Season 5, let us know in the comments. What do you think? We want to hear your thoughts. Yeah. Tell us. And if you haven't seen it, it's only available on Peacock. So if you choose to see it, go ahead, come back and tell us what you think.
Right. And if you haven't already, subscribe for updates, weekly videos for your anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us again today. We are so grateful for you. Thank you for joining us for Superhero Month. We hope you're enjoying what we're covering.
Yes.
If you have any suggestions or requests for 2026 Superhero Month, let us know in the comments below.
Yes.
As always,
you are special. Thank you so much for watching Rascal Entertainment
and Mom Entertainment.
Have a toontastic day.
Peace.